Yeah, that got out of control quick. That was not necessary. And we got some stuff to do here. And over here. Alright, welcome back, you shitbox junkies, to another riveting episode of The Art of Shitboxes. And we're still working on the K24 swap MX-5. The great news is, I've made some progress, as we can see. Oil catch can't, well, okay. So, got my dry sump oil tank mounted. Header kit. Having a little fun with it. Really unrealistic to try and wrap the headers up and then back down. That'll get so out of control, there will be no way to actually mount them to the head when the motor's in there, I'm pretty sure. A little bit of a hiccup at the dry sump. Obviously, there's always going to be some kind of hiccup with this much development, but it's not too bad. Let's take a look. It's not awful, but I made a slight measuring miscalculation. Let's take a look here. We have a gap here. When I measured the bolt holes here and here, I totally forgot to compensate for that water plate. So, whoops, not a big deal. Had to shave this thing a bit to get it off. What's nice is I was almost to the point of being able to use the actual mounting holes on here, but then I realized that still mounts too low and that this Gilmer pulley just wants to ride on this bolt right here. So, right now, I'm going to go ahead and get to work on this thing. What's going to happen here is, as you can see, I've already marked the lines on the tab. Both tabs are going to get cut, and then I'm going to drill some new holes. And that will bring this entire thing up probably about, say, a solid inch to half-inch there. And that should get it to clear the steering rack. After that, my 3D prints for my header kit, they kind of ended up like shit. Not going to lie. They're very flimsy. I was having a bit of a hassle trying to figure out my 3D printer at the time because I started using Pura Slicer instead. I started using Pura Slicer. I didn't realize the layer height I was using was too small because I thought Cura knew something I didn't for my 1mm nozzle that I use to make these really fast prototypes. So, while they work, for the most part, they're very loose, so they're kind of hard to work with. When I had figured it out a night prior, I started printing the straight pieces, and they're very tight and taut together when you plug them into each other. So, chances are I'll be reprinting all these 22.5 degree ones. I'm also still waiting on my 2-to-1 merge collectors to print out as well, so I can use them down there, and I literally only have 2 feet worth of straight pipe with me, I think. Because that's how long it takes, about 8 hours for 24 of these to print. And it's about the same rate for 24 of the bends to print as well. So, it takes a little bit of time. So I'm going to go ahead, just jump right in. I'm going to take apart the dry sump pump now, get those flanges off, cut them down to size, drill some holes in there, see how it clears. After that's done, I think that's about all I can do. Maybe I'll play around with the header kit a little bit more, but it's a bit unstable, and they kind of suck to work with right now. But it'll give me an idea of how much pipe I need, at least to an extent. The bracket for the dry sump pump, while it is great, the rear bracket is going to need a reinforcement to the front wall over here, because that's going to be way too much weight for one flange up there. So we're going to do that, and then we're also going to take a look at the block. We're going to take a look at the block, because I have mounted the ATI dampener on here, and I need to figure out if the Gilmer pulley set they sent me this time actually fits this MSD, or if this fits the ATI crank pulley or not. So, let's get going. The fun truly never ends, ever, especially with this project. Things aren't just getting out of hand. They're getting out of hand because of my own doing and my own idiocy. But, let's take a look at what I'm going to need to do now, most likely. Sway bar just barely clears the K24 pulley. Just barely. It's fine, but it clears it. Problem. There's going to be a dry sump here, and that does not even remotely clear the sway bar. Nor will that ATI damper over here with its massive Gilmer pulley up front. Fuck me. Chances are I'm making sway bar mounts and most likely making a custom sway bar because there's no way that I could get the stock one to work. Maybe with some longer end lengths, but that's not ideal either. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Well, on a positive note, at least, I know I'm going to be able to fit some very long tube 4-to-1, well, 2-to-1 headers in here. It looks pretty good. I have tons of clearance. I can bring down these headers another 2 inches. Sit level midway with the frame, well, with the subframe. So I'm going to need plenty of room here to put collectors, and then a 2-inch pipe all the way back to here, where I will probably put a cat and then a resonator and then that muff, and it'll all be titanium from here back. So that's good. Little no surprise, the other Gilmer pulley set that I bought for this ATI damper also doesn't fit. So I'm a little miffed. I'm a little unsure as to what I'm going to do about a dry sump pulley off the front of the street damper. I know people do use the street damper with dry sump kits. I just need to figure out what they're using on the front of it and what kind of adapter they're using. I know Track Tough has a dry sump pump, and he says he's used. Turns out my second batch of 3D printed header Legos here worked out a lot better than the first one. So that's good. And it worked out very well for me today. After a few hours, I have a 4:2-to-1 header. And it's long. Real long. I'm pretty much following everyone else's recipe. It is going to start as 1 3/4, then step into a 1 7/8, and it'll merge to a set of 2-to-1s here. So those will end up being 2 inches all the way back here, and then the two will merge into a 2.5 outlet over here from a Y pipe, and then I'll have an anti-reversion chamber back here, and then the rest will be titanium. The only other thing I'm thinking right now is with how long this thing is, even though I like having the length of, the primaries here, I'm probably going to cut out 6 inches right here from the actual build and push this all forward a bit so I have a little bit more room here, and so I can have more room to work with back here. For the street, I'll end up running a cat after the header. When we're racing, I'm just going to have a titanium resonator, and then it'll connect to a titanium muffler back here. With the header being so ridiculously long, what's nice is my TI bill ends up being a lot cheaper, in all honesty. So that's the one thing. This honestly might be even too long. I'm going to check the math. I'm going to measure this thing out. If I take out 6 inches here and maybe another 4 inches here for a total of 10 and bring it back to about here, I'd probably work a little better. I'm not sure. But according to Richard Haldner, who really the only person that has taken stock K24A2 and dynoed it piece for piece, he showed that the longer your 4:2-to-1 headers are, the more mid-range you make and you don't lose any top end on a well-designed header. So with this, there will be no back pressure in this, I'm pretty sure. And hopefully it'll scavenge hard. And with it dumping to a 3-inch, I don't see why it would have any back pressure. So we'll see. Next up, let's take an oil pan off and start making a template. And as we can see, I think we've got a good amount of clearance to the frame rail, so the header should go on and off pretty easily with the collectors down there. Yeah. Got my big oil tank, waiting to make a bracket for my water pump. It'll probably sit somewhere right here, like so. And all I gotta do now is find a radiator that's gonna fit back in here, which is really the interesting part. Let's take a closer look at my 4:2-to-1 here. Some very long primary runners that will merge from 1 7/8 to 2-inch back here, and the 2-inch back here will become a 2 to 2.5. And the reversion will go 2.5 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 3, V-band to a 3 to the titanium stuff. And again, I might shorten this all up, and I probably should. And I should have the merge collection probably happen right around here, actually. This would be ridiculous, and it'll probably sound ridiculous if I keep it this way, but at this point, I don't know if there's anything to gain from such long 4:2-to-1 headers, but I guess we'll see. Did I just spend 3 sessions unnecessarily building a header out of plastic? Yeah, I did. It was probably the most pedantic thing I've done to add best game fraction of a horsepower. I don't know. All the runners right now are within a fraction of an inch of each other, so it's about as good as it's going to get. Some of the tubes are a bit more wavy, some are straight, but they're all there, and the volume's about equal in all of them. So I will be stepping from 1 3/4 to 1 7/8, and then to 2-inch on the secondaries, all the way to a 3-inch catback. Stay tuned for that bullshit. It's time to order a ton of stuff and make my credit card melt.